The Royal Chef is finally here, and even after its pre-release nerf, the card is still the most broken tower troop in the entire game, as long as you know how to use it. So here are 5 tips you need to know about the Royal Chef in order to get its maximum value. Starting off with tip number 1, time your pushes properly so you don't waste a pancake on a troop with low health. Now, the Royal Chef kind of has a built-in system that mitigates this with its buff threshold. It won't give a pancake to troops that are under 20% health. However, you can't really rely on that consistently. So even if you have to play maybe your tank in the back when you usually play it on 10 Elixir, maybe you try playing it on 9 Elixir just to capitalize off the pancake. That should be something you try and do, because in order to get the maximum value out of most of your push, you're going to want to try and get 2 pancakes off, and it's very doable as long as you time it so that you are getting the first pancake on your initial deployment of the troop. You don't necessarily always need to start up your push with the pancake. You can always use the pancake on one of your defensive troops like the Valkyrie or something like that. It's not the best use of the pancake, but you're also not going to waste it on like a skeleton or something like that. So if you don't feel like, or if you're just not in a good position to start up a push, you don't have to start up a push. Just because you have a pancake, you can use it on a secondary troop or something like that, as long as it's not being wasted on a useless troop like the Ice Spirit. Not that the Ice Spirit's useless. I love you, buddy. Tip number 2, do not feel like you have to build a push around the pancakes in single Elixir. This is a really important tip because myself included, I've seen a lot of players that will try and be extra aggressive at the beginning of the game in order to try and get the pancake value. And this is a really bad idea because only a couple of decks, I'm looking at you, Goblinstein P.E.K.K.A, are able to apply extreme aggressive pressure and also defend and not get 3 crowned. There are many decks in the game that are going to lose instantly if you try and make a big push right at the beginning of the game. So let's say you go Golem in the back first play at 30 seconds in the game just because you want to get the pancake value. You get Gob Giant Mini P.E.K.K.A at opposite lane, and you desperately spend your last Elixir trying to not get 3 crowned. Probably one, this won't really work. You'll probably end up getting 3 crowned anyways, and even if you don't, now your Golem has literally no support, so your opponent's just going to use whatever Elixir they have left to defeat the Golem. They'll go up a tower and you'll still be trailing. You want to try and use the pancakes whenever you can, but don't rush it, and don't try and play how you wouldn't normally play just because you have the Royal Chef. You still want to focus on defense and figuring out your opponent's stack early on in the game so that you can build up big pushes, and the pancakes, they're not going anywhere. You still got the ability to build up pancake pushes. Really, I like that terminology, by the way. You still have the opportunity to build up these pushes towards the end of single Elixir, or if you're up Elixir at any point in the game, or definitely during double, as beatdown decks are naturally better during double as well. Make sure you're not being too aggressive and losing the game instantly, because I'm sure that's happened to you before, and don't feel afraid to waste a pancake on maybe a low health support unit like maybe the Firecracker or something like that if you absolutely have to, because it's not worth it to just lose the entire game to try and force a push at the beginning of the game. Tip number 3 is to prioritize using the pancakes on troops with interaction changes. Off the top of my head, the Queen survives lightning when it's level 16 and one-shots minions. Phoenix survives lightning. Lava Hound goes from 2-shot to 3-shot. The pups on the tower. So that's a big change right there. Obviously, there are some smaller interactions as well, but try and find these out for your specific deck and focus on using those cards upgraded as well. You don't necessarily have to focus on your tanks all the time or your win conditions, even though they can be helpful most of the time, especially depending on your opponent's deck. Prioritizing these interactions will help you massively, and is kind of what makes the tower troop so broken, is because now you have to find different ways to deal with cards that you normally would not have to do. Hope that makes sense, and if you have any clarifications you want on any tips so far in the video, make sure to leave a like down below and leave a comment. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Tip number 4, keep a close eye on how much Elixir your opponent has. Now, this isn't specific to the Royal Chef necessarily, but it will massively help you upgrade cards, set up pushes, and have a nicer, pleasant experience with the Royal Chef if you know how much Elixir you're up or down at all times. Now, I understand that many people can't just randomly track how much Elixir their opponent's at because they don't have a photographic memory. That's not what I'm asking you to do. Let's say your opponent plays a bomb tower and a Firecracker and then logs your push. Now you know they're really low on Elixir, and you can kind of, as time goes on and as more you practice you will be able to tell that your opponent is either spending more elixir or you are spending more elixir. Now, let's say you just go with the solo balloon at the bridge after you defend your opponent's like bandit royal ghost push with guards. Now you are only down 2 elixir and you'll be able to be more aggressive with maybe a fireball. An easy way to use this tip is to just count your opponent's push in total. Let's say it's a hog firecracker log. Obviously, you can tell that's 9 elixir. You'll be able to do the math easier as more practice goes in. And let's say all you do is cannon and guards up on the firecracker. And so now you know that you're up elixir, assuming you were both at the same to begin with, because at the beginning of the game you have the same elixir. You are going to be up elixir, and you should know that this is now a good time to go in with a push, or maybe you're not playing a beatdown deck just to apply pressure with your win condition because you're up elixir. And being up elixir will allow you to use the pancakes better because you'll be able to know when you can go in with the pancakes. And ultimately, being up elixir is the goal, so it will help you as a player just not in more ways than one, and you'll be able to tell when the best time to go in is, because a lot of players tend to be too aggressive when they're not up enough elixir or they're at the same elixir and they wonder why their pushes never work. It is extremely important to capitalize off the elixir advantage and try and get this at all times, because it's often that you're not going to be able to get damage while you're down or even in elixir. So you need to be able to track this, and at a beginning level, being able to track your opponent's elixir for their push and your defense is a good start, and as time goes on, you will be able to master this. Tip number 5, if your opponent's Royal Chef ability is nearly ready, you can be aggressive to get them to waste the pancake. This is kind of looking at the tips that we've used and kind of reversing it, and being able to apply pressure while your opponent is maybe about to start up something is very, very good to do, because you can make them waste the pancake or just delay their push, especially if you're going up against a beatdown player and you know that they're about to try and use the pancake value. You can time your pushes really well to get extra damage. Let's say you go hogs at the same time they go golem in the back. That's not necessarily what always needs to happen, but you can apply pressure with light elixir cards. Maybe you have a bandit or royal ghost in your deck you can apply pressure with for a really cheap cost to you, and also an expensive cost to your opponent, because not only do they have to waste a troop to defend that, they also have to waste their pancakes. So it's a really good idea to try and be aggressive to ruin your opponent's pancakes. This isn't necessarily always a good idea, and you have to be careful with it though, because you don't want to play something that a beatdown player can easily ignore and just have them go up elixir and, you know, eat the damage, go up elixir and get the pancake value. You have to try and play something that will either get a lot of damage or is really cheap, so that you don't have to worry about going down elixir. So I think the Royal Ghost is a really good example of this. You may not have it in your deck, but if you're applying pressure with the Royal Ghost, they're going to either have to respond to it or take over 2000 damage at level 15. So it's a good idea to try and think about cards that your opponent can't just take out really easily with maybe a spell or something like that. And as always, you can always mix and match depending on what your deck is. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope these tips were helpful to you. Have a great rest of your day and enjoy abusing the Royal Chef.